For Crema Media's Polity, I'm Sanel Dlamini. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me to discuss End or New Coalition Era. Welcome, Raymond.
Thank you.
You say the coalition formed by the three opposition parties following the local government elections in 2016 doesn't share clearly elaborated program. What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, the parties came together in order to defeat the ANC. No one had 50% of the vote, and they had different programs, so that what they agreed on is very limited, and it's sometimes ambiguous. It's unclear what what they stand for. And you can't expect parties who get together a few weeks after an election and come to an agreement to have elaborated, clear areas of agreement. For the EFF, for example, although they're not coalition as opposed to alliance, for the EFF, for example, they mainly made demands in regard to the national. And I think the others, you know, it's not very clear. It was quite easy for the DA to make their policies the dominant issue, dominant policies, except that in Nelson Mandela Bay, it was done in such an arrogant way, in the sense that he didn't consult about anything. So it was harder to do that. But if you ask yourself, what is the agreed coalition policies? Yeah, they're broad things like increased service delivery and things like that. But they didn't have time to elaborate it properly. I also don't know to what extent they have common meetings. They're not a unity. They are, for political purposes, they are unity against the ANC. They are not really a unity on a program for the way forward. But that's not the central thrust of my article.
But would you say that these types of coalition we are experiencing in our country are failing because of or not having these clearly outlined programs?
Well, you know, they are not failing for that reason alone. I think that, as I outlined in Nelson Mandela Bay, there was conflict within the coalition partners, with Ethel Trollope giving the State of the City address, and the UDM complaining that they were not consulted. And he said, "You're confusing who is the dog and who is the tail. And I have no obligation to consult you." Now, if you deal with your coalition partners in this way, you're not building a basis for cooperation whereby you can have a cohesive support for a particular set of policies. You're building resentment. Also, it's alleged that Bobani, I don't know the records, I'm saying alleged, Bobani voted with the ANC on many cases. Now, it's not clear to me what was in the coalition agreement. Did they have to vote together on everything, or were there not areas where parties retained their autonomy and they managed to, and they were allowed, therefore, to act independently? But the other thing is that the DA in Nelson Mandela Bay alleges that Bobani is corrupt, and they got a Price Waterhouse Cooper report, but they've never released this to the public. So if you make an allegation like that, and it's about 18 months or more back, why is it not released? In Tshwane, I don't know exactly. I think what's happening mainly in Tshwane is that it's a fallout from Nelson Mandela Bay. EFF is flexing its muscles again, but they don't act as a unity with the ANC, and they have to act together. And it does appear there's some irregularities, in that someone was appointed who had to resign, and then a bodybuilder was appointed by Msimanga. So I'm not sure, I wouldn't like to say he's corrupt, but he's done some things that have, you see, they don't consult with their partners about some positions. Because I think correctly, some positions have to be with people that you trust, but you've got to find a way of putting it across to your partners and not have them learn that the person has no qualifications except that he's a bodybuilder.
And would you say that what we're seeing, Raymond, in the coalition is maybe an advantage to the ANC as we are leading up to the elections?
You know, I don't know if it's an advantage. It shows the dangers. If the ANC goes into a coalition with the EFF, which seems the most likely, in the previous times I would have said the UDM and maybe COPE. But if they go in with the EFF is very unpredictable. They can just suddenly come with a motion of no confidence, or you do one thing, suddenly do something, and then they say no, we can't be partners with a party that does this. So they can see this, but they have no choice if they get under 50%. If they get over 50%, and it's possible that the ANC will get over 50%, or let's say there's a very good chance that they'll get slightly over 50%, in which case they won't need a coalition partner. Because what works in the ANC's favour is that the two main opposition parties are in disarray. There's not infighting, as far as I'm aware, in the EFF, but the EFF have done things since the fall of Zuma which have shocked many people who admired them, and I think they've lost a lot of, let me say, guarded respect that they had. Now with this racism, these calls to violence, the support for allegedly corrupt people, these things have lost them a lot of support. Now, ANC, if it wins, will win not because the ANC is so admirable in people's eyes, but because the others don't know what's going on. The DA is in chaos.
And what do you make of the recent developments that the DA, ACDP, as well as the COPE are trying to oust the UDM leader in the coalition, following what happened in Nelson Mandela Bay?
Well, you see, UDM went along with the motion of no confidence in Trollip. So that's what they want to do. That's what they feel that he's not, they are not reliable partners. But it's the problem for the DA with this is that Bantu Holomisa is a very, very mature person, and he's the sort of person who can talk to the EFF and talk them out of doing something. And if you want to win peace amongst the opposition parties, you need Holomisa. At one stage, Terra Lakota was also playing that role, but I think he is coming out against land distribution and things like this has made him less credible, whereas Holomisa is very measured in what he says.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Crema Media's Polity about end or new phase of coalition.